Hey everyone, and welcome back to Timeless. I've noticed a lot of people commenting on my videos saying that they are new to Timeless or that they don't play it, but they would love to get into it. So I decided to make a video on what is, in my opinion, the best deck to get into the format with and the best deck to learn the format with. I say this for a couple of reasons. First, the play patterns of the deck are relatively straightforward and easy to understand. It's also a very good best of one deck if best of one is your thing, and if you play best of three, it's a very simple deck to sideboard with. You can notice I only have 4 unique cards in my sideboard as it is. So I'll explain the sideboarding in a bit, but it isn't too crazy complicated. And lastly, which I think is most important, if we remove the Bowmasters and the Bolt here, every single non-land permanent in the main deck is common or uncommon, and this is more or less a meta build of burn, and we're not sacrificing on quality by playing all these commons and uncommons. The only rares that you would need to craft to play this deck in best of one are Lightning Bolt, which is a ubiquitous format staple. You will not regret crafting this if you like playing red decks, and Orcish Bowmasters, another format staple. You will also not regret crafting this card if you do. So it's only 8 rare cards to get the deck going, and all of the rares are format staples. Unfortunately, sideboard is 15 rares. So if you're a best of 3 gamer, it's going to be a little bit more expensive. Maybe you can look for replacements for these particular cards. Another note about rare wild cards is if you're hurting for rare wild cards, you don't have to build the mana base exactly like this. 2-color decks in Timeless can survive with less fetch lands. You can use whatever lands you have, like whatever lands you've been playing Standard Historic Explorer with. It's not going to be optimal, but like let's say you only had 4 fetch lands, it's not going to kill the deck. You can slowly craft them as you go. However, as a Timeless player, I'm telling you, crafting all of the fetch lands in every color is never a bad investment. Crafting 4 shock lands in every color, never a bad investment. Crafting the first surveil land in every single color, never a bad investment. These lands are absolutely worth crafting once you get there. And if you don't have something like Blackcleave Cliffs, you can cut this and go ahead and play more fetch lands. So that's why I love this deck. It's really budget friendly, really rare wildcard friendly. I guess Lurrus is a ninth rare card if you play best of one, but again, this is another format staple that you are not going to regret crafting for Timeless. So the deck's game plan is very simple. This is the closest thing Timeless has to burn, so it is what we call burn. We have cheap prowess creatures, such as Monastery Swiftspear. We have Dragon's Rage Channeler, which is very easy to get Delirium with in this game. Also fixes our top decks. We have Amped Raptor, which I will say is the best creature in the deck, in my opinion, right now. No other energy card in the deck, but this pretty much just says you get to cast any other card from your deck for free. The card is random, but this card is always a 2-for-1. It's amazing at applying pressure. Because Amped Raptor is at minimum a 2-1 first strike. It can be 2-1 first strike, draw a card, and put an artifact in your graveyard. 2-1 first strike, deal damage to your opponent. 2-1 first strike, deal damage to your opponent, and make them discard. 2-1 first strike, also make another 1-1, maybe 3-3 body on the battlefield. 2-1 first strike, put an Orcish Bowmasters onto the battlefield. It is crazy high upside. In my opinion, the best card in the deck right now. Like the power level of this card is awesome for an uncommon, and I love playing with it at every possible opportunity. The last creature in the suite is Orcish Bowmasters, and this is one that is a bit marginal on whether or not it should be in the main deck or the sideboard. I would say that Orcish Bowmasters and Searing Blood, I'll pull them out to the side, are the ones that are marginal. So if you want to make tweaks to the deck, these are the cards that you can consider cutting for other ones. But other than that, we are just playing burn spells. We're playing Bump in the Night. We're playing Hopeless Nightmare, which is like Bump of the Night, but it is 2 life instead of 1. Or, excuse me, it's 2 life instead of 3. You lose out on life, but your opponent has to discard a card. It's also an enchantment, which is relevant as a card type for Dragon's Rage Channeler. And it is also nice with Lurrus, because if you do go very long in the game, and you need that little bit more reach, you can sacrifice it and loop it with Lurrus, which is pretty cool. And then we have Kamano, which acts as a 17th through 20th creature in the deck, while also being a non-creature spell to trigger your prowess and to trigger your surveils on the Dragon's Rage Channeler. And of course, we're playing the ubiquitous staple Lightning Bolt. When it comes to the mana base, it is your standard 2-color fetch land mana base. We're playing a couple of fetch lands, just 6. We're playing the 1 surveil land. We are playing 2 mountains and a swamp. Our fetch lands are all black, just in case we play against a Blood Moon for some reason. I don't know who brings in Blood Moon against Burn, but maybe somebody's main decking it. We can fetch our basic swamp with all of our fetches. And we have Blackcleave Cliffs as well, because it's pretty free for 2-color lands, or 2-color decks to run the fast lands like this. Newest addition to the deck, the other addition from MH3 other than Amped Raptor is Barbarian Ring. So a lot of red players here know the card Raminap Ruins and know that card is very strong. Raminap Ruins is a desert that you can sacrifice late game for 4 mana plus tapping the desert itself to deal 2 damage to your opponent. Barbarian Ring, same thing, except you only need Threshold, which is 7 cards in your graveyard. With a burn deck, it's so much easier to hit 7 cards in your graveyard than it is to hit 5 mana. This is a straight upgrade to Raminap Ruins in the deck. And it does cause a little bit more life loss because it can't tap for colorless without hurting you. You have to pay 1 life every single time you tap this for mana, but it's not the end of the world. On to sideboarding. So I said these cards here are marginal, and if you're a best of 1 gamer, you might want to change these to suit your meta a little bit more. Like I was thinking, if you wanted to play this deck in best of 1, you might want to main deck the Roiling Vortexes for some amount of Searing Bloods. Maybe it's something to consider. So when you're sideboarding with this deck, you're going to look at these cards specifically, and then you're also going to look at the things in your sideboard, and you're going to say to yourself, okay, which of these 14 cards in the sideboard plus 8, which of these 22s are best? I have 8 slots. Do I want Bowmasters because my opponent is drawing cards? Do I want Searing Blood because my opponent is playing creatures? Do I want Eidolon because my opponent is a cheap creature deck or they are a combo deck that relies on casting a lot of cheap spells? Do I want Thoughtseize to disrupt my opponent's combo or to disrupt their counter spells? Do I want Roiling Vortex to disrupt their free spells? Or do I want Surgical to hate on their graveyard? And if you ever find yourself wanting to bring in more than 8 sideboard cards, your next cut, in my opinion, is Hopeless Nightmare. So sometimes against combo decks, you might want the Roiling Vortices and all the Thoughtseizes and the Surgicals. I'm totally down to bring 10 cards in against combo decks that are going to give you a tough time. And you might want to keep some Bowmasters in as well, because it could be a blue combo deck. So you would want to take out your Nightmares and your Searing Blood and 2 Bowmasters, then you bring in 10 cards. All right, I think that's about it. We kept the deck to just a solid 7 minutes, and I'm going to go ahead and take this deck through some ranked games now. Hopefully give everybody a little explanation of the gameplay there and a good example to follow. All right, game 1, we are going to be on the play against the Spicy Manipulator. Nice name. We have an opening hand that has aggressive creatures, a Bump in the Night to deal damage and get us a Prowess trigger, and get us a Surveil trigger, and then we also have the Amped Raptor, which I just called the most efficient card in our deck, so let's go ahead and keep this. It's the question of what do we want to do? How do we want to sequence our turns? I personally love starting with Dragon's Rage Channeler because it's a card I like to try to aggressively flip. However, I only have 1 card to trigger the DRC, and I also don't have a fetch land to race towards Delirium. So in this case, I'm actually going to lead with Swift Spear to get the 1 extra point of haste damage. Because I know next turn, Dragon's Rage Channeler is not going to flip into a 3/3 attacker. If there's a chance for me to flip it on turn 2, then I would of course play it turn 1. But since there isn't, we're going to play Swift Spear here. And we'll see what our opponent is up to. Next turn, we're almost definitely playing this DRC, though. Alright, Deathrite Shaman, you got it. The Deathrite Shaman can be a tough card for us because our opponents can use it to gain life, but thankfully we draw a Lightning Bolt here. I'm very interested in Lightning Bolting this threat because it is a card that will gain life for our opponents every single turn. And it can also block our creatures. So let's go ahead and get it out of the way. Not the best blocker, but while our DRC is a 1/1, every little blocker does matter. Okay, another DRC. We're very far from flipping this. No card types in the graveyard yet, so we're going to put it in the graveyard. It'll also be our first creature in there, so it'll help flip this first one. And I say flip, I know every other... Ooh, choices. And keep Swift here. Every person who's played with DRC ever refers to it as flipping when it gets +2/+2. I know it's not an actual flip card. It's just like a reference to Delver of Secrets and how this kind of just became the new Delver. A little 1/1 that flips into a 3-power flyer eventually after you play enough spells. Alright, and our opponent will be yoinking. That is their Dragon's Rage Channeler now. Okay. So let's think about what we want to do. I think I want to do the Amped Raptor and then decide which of these 2 spells I want to do after I play my Amp. I would also just play both of them out, but then it would be a little mana inefficient. We would only use 2 of our 3 mana. Let's see what we hit here. All right, there's my own DRC. So let's go ahead and bump in the night our opponent for cryptic considerations. Hopefully we can get Delirium, because we don't have a sorcery in our graveyard yet. That is a Bowmasters. Am I interested in drawing this? Our opponent has showed us blue as their secondary color. So yes, I am interested in drawing this, because next turn I'm going to have 3 mana available to me. I'm going to use one of my mana on this, and I'm going to be happy to use the other mana on Bowmasters. Our opponent, with this deck, maybe this is like a Satoru deck, or it also just could be a Treasure Cruise deck. Like, whenever you see blue, you should assume Treasure Cruises, Brainstorms, Psychic Frogs to draw cards. A lot of ways for those colors to draw cards. Alright, ooh, they're paying life here, so they probably have a Fatal Push coming through. Maybe another Death Right. Okay, another Reanimated is. Cool. Yeah, it is a very nice blocker against me. It also took me 1 card type away from Delirium, which is a little bit annoying. So let's go ahead and start out by playing this Hopeless Nightmare. We will get a Surveil trigger. Is that the correct ordering? Just thinking if there's any reason why I would want to do that after combat. And there's no chance for me to flip my Dragon's Rage Channeler into a 3/3 this turn. So, and I'm also not going to attack with Swift Sphere. I'm going to wait until next turn. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to attack with Amped Raptor. If my opponent tries to block, I could use the Orcish Bowmaster ping to make sure that it's favorable for me. The one way this doesn't work is if they block with Psychic Frog and discard multiple cards, but I think I'm okay in that case. I'm fine to Mind Rot them. Okay, yeah, so here we're going to flash in our Bowmasters. We get a nice little ping here. And now there's the question of, do we want a Nightmare this turn? Part of me really wants to Nightmare while they still have cards in hand, but the other part of me thinks it's very valuable as a Prowess trigger for next turn, for our Swift Spear, because we have them very close to dead, and that 1 extra damage will probably end up mattering. Let's see. Opponent is going to keep Frog back as a blocker. They had the option to go ahead and fly it here, but that would give me a Bowmaster trigger. That would leave them with 1 less blocker, so it makes sense that they didn't. Chthonian Nightmare, that's sweet. So they have a Deathrite Shaman to get back by sacrificing my DRC? Sure. Seems like a cool idea. But they lose the 3/3 flyer, but they did get another blocker. A Barbarian Ring is very cool to see. Let's first begin by casting this Hopeless Nightmare and see if we can hit Delirium here. That is a land. We had no lands in the graveyard, right? Sweet, that's Delirium. And my opponent's Deathrite Shaman is still a Summoning Sickness, so they can't mess with that. This is 2 damage and a discard here. And here we're just going to turn all the cards sideways. We don't have to think any harder than that. They're going to discard their whole hand? Alright, I like it. They're gaming, look at this. They'll just turn their whole hand into counters. So now in order to attack, we have to quote-unquote throw away one of my creatures, but I think it's totally cool to do that. Because we're so close to actually winning the beatdown here. And if 2 creatures go to my graveyard, we can then activate the Barbarian, right? And if that happens, they're dead. Their opponent's gonna have to be very careful here. Oh, flying to block my DRC. Okay, that means they won't be exactly dead. Those should be very close. Forgot about them doing flying, because now we are hitting in for... Oh no, we still have just barely enough. Sweet. Xaxes. Right, we are up against a graveyard deck. They got those cool Bloodghast Chthonian Nightmares, so we definitely want our Surgicals. Out of these marginal cards, we still do want the Bowmasters. Searing Blood is also pretty good against them because they are playing a lot of creatures that will die to it, to be honest. So let's look at our deck and let's think about what is the worst card that we don't want here. It might be Hopeless Nightmare because they are a Bloodghast deck and a Psychic Frog deck. They have a lot of cards that they're just happy to discard and put in their graveyard. So in my opinion, this card, we can go down to 2 copies of it, or perhaps we could even go down to 0 and we put some Eidolons in. That's very interesting. Let's go ahead and put the Eidolons in, and let's go down to 0 Hopeless Nightmares and see how that goes. All right, this looks like a pretty sweet opening hand. We have a sideboard card, which I'm always happy to keep. We do have Kumano without a creature, but it's not the most awkward thing I've ever seen. I would much rather take the opportunity to Surgical Bloodghast out of their deck. All right, nothing too great there. So I think right here, we have the choice. We can either just play Kumano without a creature to follow up guaranteed. Well, we drew a creature to follow up. So let's just take our creature. How about that? So here, let's just be a little careful with the life loss because we do have triple fetch land opener. So let's go ahead and get a mountain. We have triple fetch land and we're planning on paying life for surgical here because I want to cast Eidolon next turn. So there's nothing in the graveyard I'm too interested in surgicaling in advance. If they play a card like Athonian Nightmare, for example, sack a Stitchers to get one of these back, then I will surgical in response to that. Alright, there is a crazy frog, as they say. Stitchers is coming in, that's fine. Ooh, Swifty. Okay, so now we have a little bit of a choice. Instead of jamming the Eidolon, like I said before, we can play Swifty. Playing Swifty, I think, is a little bit better, just because if we play Eidolon now, we're going to take a lot, and I mean a lot of self-damage. So are our opponent, right? Thinking about it. How much do I love this Eidolon? I love the idea of an Eidolon against them, honestly. Let's go ahead and put it in. We sideboarded the card in for a reason, right? We are going to take a lot, and I mean a lot of self-damage against this. However, our opponent also will need to take quite a bit of damage here. Let's see what happens. Satoru, yep, you're taking 2. And they're going to fly their frog, probably. Fine by me. Oh, they're discarding. Okay, I'm very interested in surgicaling this. If they play a land drop, I'm going to take it right out of that graveyard. This costs 4 life, by the way. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Oh, wait, no, I misplayed. No. I misplayed while I was talking for the video. Now they can crack their fetch land in response. It's my bad. Sorry. Sometimes I'm a bit focused on talking and explaining it clearly, and then I forget. So I made a mistake there because they have that fetch land available, which means that they can just activate it again in response, trigger Bloodghast's ability. It goes onto the stack above my surgical, and then that's why this Bloodghast came into play clean. I think I'm going to go ahead and block here. And the reason is it does cost them a card to kill Eidolon still, and I kind of want Eidolon dead so I don't die personally. That was bad by me. I'm sorry about that. Alright, so now. We had some cool new cards. So we have a choice here. We can go gung-ho and try to swing with all of our attackers, or we can wait a turn. I'm just trying to weigh our options, because we would want to play both Swift Spears and get the max number of prowess triggers. I want to Searing Blood them. I think if we wait, we're very, very, very likely to win next turn. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm happy if my opponent attacks here. Dang, you know, if we played that correctly with the surgical, we'd be in a lot better situation. Though this Bloodghast is not doing much by itself. This thing's not going to attack here. Because with this 1/2 Swift Spear, that could easily grow into a 2/3. They're probably only attacking with the Frog, if at all. Oh no, they're going to get in here. Okay. Yeah, if you want to have less blockers, sure. That's fine. Alright, because we are trying to kill them this turn. That's why I took all that damage. Alright, another Stitchers, you got it. You're gonna oh, that's such a good play. Wow, nice. Yeah, that's sweet. Alright, I think they win this game now because of that, because I went down to 3. Draw a card here. Then if I Searing Blood the Eidolon and then I bump in the night them, they can double chump with the Stitcher Supplier, and I don't think it's enough anymore. I would need to Searing Blaze this so I can cast both spells. It's not going to be enough damage, unfortunately, so we can go to game 3, and hopefully not throw that game away. So Eidolon was pretty dope. It's also dope against me, but we need to be smart and not pay 4 life for a card that doesn't do anything, right? So I think we can run it back and we'll be okay. Oh, right. We will be on the play, of course, when we're playing Burn, and we have what looks like a pretty sweet hand. We have basic Swamp with double Searing Blood. Our one basic, but we can make it work. We have plenty of time to find that second red source. And we have, the reason I really like this hand is because we have the Dragon's Rage Channeler into Amped Raptor Curve, which means we're going to get ahead on board state really, really quickly, and then we'll be able to put the pressure on. Our opponent's deck can get a little cute with the graveyard stuff, so hopefully we can punish them and just run them over before they really get a chance to get Satoru going, get their Chthonian Nightmare Bloodghast loops going. Alright, they're just passing, so the best thing that we're looking to hit here off the Amped Raptor is just another creature. There's something for board state. Yeah, that's good. Anything to get as big and as wide of a board as possible. Now, we want to draw third land here, number 1. But if we don't, we could just play Swifty or Bolt, and we can keep the pressure on. Our opponent here can present at most 1 blocker, and we will bolt it if it is something that's concerning to me, like a Satoru or a Frog. Frog is a little tricky with bolts, but Bolt can pretty much act like Mind Rot in this case. Ooh, alright, what am I getting rid of? I think Bowmasters right now. Dragon's Rage Channeler can easily become a 3/3 in this situation. I just have to cast an instant and then surveil something new. Bowmaster, it can get me more value in the future. But for now, it's just a 1/1, and we are very aggressively on the beatdown right now. Alright, let's go ahead and flip our Dragon's Rage Channeler, like I said. We want third land really bad here. Yeah, I'm going to value flipping the DRC over playing the Swift Spear. Because Swift Spear would have been a max of 1 damage this turn. But flipping the Dragon's Rage Channeler into a 3/3 is 2 extra damage this turn, and it's the damage every single turn after that from it being a flying blocker, or a flying attacker that they can't block very easily. Alright, there's your crazy Frog. They don't have enough cards in graveyard as is to fly it, but what they could do is they could discard most of their hand to put a lot of counters on it and then fly it. When you are losing against Burn, that's one of the things you have to do sometimes. So we'll see how our opponent plays that. We could use a Lightning Bolt to help make sure that it at least trades, and if they give up that much card advantage, we are probably winning. Alright, ooh. We're drawing all of our double red spells when we drew our 1 basic swamp, unfortunately. It's important to have that 1 basic, but we're definitely in the worst end of it right now. Yep, they may put a 1/1 counter on it. Are you going to fly it, as I predicted? You are. Okay, so they're getting rid of their whole graveyard, and they're discarding multiple cards to try and make this work. Yep, so they go ahead and block. They're 2/3 on my 3/3. they are going to discard another card here. Let's get this timing right. So when they go to discard a card, I'm going to respond to this trigger before the counter goes on Frog and say, hey, discard another, or it's going to die. So my opponent has to discard another card, and there's my Bloodstained Mire I was looking for. My opponent is going to do it, but Psychic Frog is still going to trade with DRC, and now they're down to 1 card in hand. They're at 1 card in hand, they're going to be at 5 life, up against Burn. We could throw down an Eidolon and pretty much lock down the game next turn. Seems pretty good to me. Or we could Searing Blood their blocker if they play only 1 blocker, and they have nothing else going for them. Alright, yep, looks like it's going to be a Searing Blood kind of turn. Bloodghast cannot block, of course. Go ahead, grab our mountain. Get out of the way. And that is a good game. All right, game 2 of the video, we are going to be on the draw against Bookworm. They are presenting a Lurrus deck. This seems pretty good to me. We have turn 1 Kumano, turn 2 put the counter on Swiftspear, and cast a Bauble to filter our next draw off of a fetch land. And I will show you how to do that if you do not know what I'm talking about. It's a good trick with Bauble. If you're new to playing with fetches, you might not know it. Alright, ooh, we got Nightmare for next turn as well. I do want to sequence turn 1 Kumano here over turn 1 Nightmare or Swiftspear because I want the permanent +1/+1 counter to go onto my Swiftspear. Let's go ahead and play Kumano. And we will pass the turn. We're going to do Bauble next turn, when we have the Swiftspear in play for the Prowess trigger and a fetch land up for filtering. Alright, Prismatic Ending on Kumano. I'm fine with that, honestly. Ooh, a second Swiftspear. That's interesting. So, my original idea with the Bauble... I'll play first Swiftspear while I think about whether or not I still do it. My original idea with the Bauble is what you can do with Bauble is you can look at the top card of your own library, play a fetch land, and then shuffle if you decide that you don't want that card. But we drew a second Swiftspear, and I want to trigger the Prowess on it, so we're going to ignore that. I'm going to value the 1 extra damage from the extra Prowess trigger more than that bit of filtering, because we are on the beatdown here against what appears to be a Lurrus control build. Maybe it's a Lurrus energy build and they're just main decking Prismatic Ending and splashing blue for something. But I would assume that this is a control deck if I see a blue land and I see Prismatic Ending. And look at that. Yep, another Sword's coming through. So it's definitely a control build. We're going to want to value every point of damage we can get. What's on top of your deck? A Brainstorm. Alright, no Bowmasters in my hand, unfortunately, but Bowmasters is definitely a card that is going to stay in against them. Opponent is going to go ahead and Brainstorm. Then we can start thinking about our second turn. We're going to have 3 mana available to us. We have 2 ways to spend it with the cards in our hand right now. We can go DRC first and then Amped Raptor. Okay, we drew another mana. I do like the idea of going DRC first and then Amped Raptor second, because if we hit a 9-creature spell, we can fix our next draw. And we don't get a Surveil that trigger off of the Hopeless Nightmare if we go these 2 cards together. And if we play just DRC and Hopeless, then we're mana inefficient. We're not using all 3 mana that we could possibly use this turn. I'm going to go ahead and grab a little more red mana real quick. And in my opinion, a random non-targeted discard spell like this is actually better the closer your opponent is to 0 cards in hand, because they don't get as much of a choice in what they discard. It's very easy to choose what to discard when you have 7 cards in hand. It's very hard sometimes when you only have 2 and you really need both of them. Unfortunately, if our opponent gets to 0 cards in hand, then it's a little sus. So if they have nothing but efficient removal spells here, it would be a little sus. But probably not. They'll probably still have at least 1. Here's a Jace Reawakened. And they'll just be looting.
I'll find what I need soon.
So we're gonna begin our next turn. Ooh, double nightmare. Dope. Yeah, it's dope. Let's go ahead and play them both, right? And then we're probably going to be fetching for a surveil land after that. So what I want to do here is, because we're going to get 3 surveil triggers here, we don't have anything to do with the mana, so we might as well get our surveil land. What I'm going to do is just surveil 3 times and try my best to flip my Dragon's Rage Channeler. It is an instant that is not good against their deck. It can go in the graveyard. We're now at 3 card types, which is awesome. What we could actually do if we wanted is to sacrifice this to get an enchantment into our graveyard. But then our opponent wouldn't have to discard their second card. Excuse me, I really want to get them Hellbent right now. I value that a lot, them having truly 0. Do we have a creature in the graveyard yet? We do not, because our opponent has exiled all of our stuff instead of using discard. All right, oh, that was a removal spell we hit. That's sweet. So let's go ahead and take out... Actually, let's not take out the Jace. Let's hit them. Now we've put our opponent on essentially a 1-outer. They need to draw a board wipe right here, right now. Otherwise, they lose. They have Wrath of the Skies in their deck, almost definitely playing Tune the Narrative. So, like, that card exists for them to win, but it is a 1-outer. And then we have a lot of cards to recover from that. We can just play any of our burn spells. We can draw a Barbarian Ring at that point. Looks good. It looks like our opponent is donezo. And if we didn't draw it in our first draw step, we have Surveil Land, we have Hopeless Nightmare to scry to. So we could have found one of those cards. So against Control Andy, Searing Blood is a card that I don't necessarily like. And what I do like against Control Andy is Thoughtseize. Thoughtseize is pretty sweet. Roiling Vortex is also possibly a consideration. They have this Jace here, so that makes me think that they want to do like the cast Valky Tibalt for free, plot things. I don't know if Roiling Vortex is necessary against that. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say it's a little more slow than not. You gotta keep in mind when you sideboard in Roiling Vortex, it does do self-damage to you from time to time off your Amp Raptor and your Bauble. But when you're playing against Control, it doesn't matter. I think I'd rather keep all these discard spells. I'd rather keep all the burn spells. I think everything in this deck right now is more efficient than the Roiling Vortex for beating this Control opponent. Yes, they may occasionally cast things for free by plotting with Jace, but that's not the primary thing that their deck does. Maybe I could have brought in Surgical for Flage, because that's a card I would expect to see in their Jeskai control list. But I did not choose to do that. Let's go ahead and keep 7 here. This is really sweet. We have a Swift Spear with a lot of prowess triggers that we could give it. We have a Dragon's Rage Channeler, and, ways to Surveil and flip it into a 3/3. We're going to once again begin with Kumano, because I value that permanent 1/1 counter a lot. Let's go ahead and take the most painful lands. We don't have to care about life loss. We don't have to care about Blood Moon in this matchup. So we just go ahead and pretty aggressively shock and fetch here. Alright, sweet. So let's go ahead and start with a Swift Spear. Well, let's aggressively shock and fetch first, like I said. Aggression. We're going to play a Swift Spear, and this will hopefully get a permanent +1/+1 counter on it if it doesn't get countered. Our opponent could easily have a Stern Scolding or something along those lines. We're going to play our DRC, and now we get 2 benefits for casting this Bauble. We get a Prowess trigger, and then we also get a Surveil. Great. That will gain us 2 life in the end. A little unfortunate. Barbarian Ring. Do we want the 3rd land right now? I think we do. We do want the 3rd land. We also already have 2 lands in the bin, so we don't have to worry about surveilling that just for mana considerations. I would like my 3rd land. That means next turn I could do Nightmare and Amped Raptor together. Or maybe Amped Raptor, or not Amped Raptor, Bowmasters plus Hopeless Nightmare. Okay, they get a Snappy back. That's a little unfortunate. That means they're going to get at least another Swords. Just a very strong card. Alright, opponent brainstorming out here before we get a chance to throw down the Bowmasters. It's a good idea. Control players will always brainstorm when you're tapped out and playing a black deck, because they live in perpetual fear of this silly little boy. It looks like they might have a removal spell for DRC. Yep, and I agree with them taking that out at sorcery speed. because you don't want me getting any extra surveil triggers. Alright, here we can get a second Kumano going, because next turn I want to play this Amped Raptor at sorcery speed. This turn I want to do Bowmasters and Kumano. So we're going to efficiently use all 3 of our mana. We're going to have a creature for the 1/1 counter from Kumano to go onto. And we're hopefully going to catch him with this Bowmasters. Hopefully going to catch him brainstorming. In fact, I'm going to flash this out right now, because they play cards like Stern Scolding and Spell Snare that can 1 mana counter my Bowmasters. I would prefer them to not do that. Keep in mind, fetch land activated abilities are not mana abilities. You can respond to them. Look at that. They choose to swords my Bowmasters instead of the Kumano. We'll be tuning some narratives and hopefully passing back to us with no more answers. Sweet. Alright, if this Amped Raptor resolves, it is awesome. I'm going to pay life. Ow. See auto tapper there. It tried to tap me out of black mana. It tried its best. If this gets counterspelled, it's a bit tragic. It doesn't. That's awesome. Another Bowmasters. It's Christmas. Alright, and then we don't have to worry about prowess triggers, so let's go to combat and cast this after combat. I did want to play my Amped Raptor before combat, because I could always hit a haste creature or something nice like that. So right here, they get to Swords by Bowmasters, block with the Snappy. We did see the Snappy before, but we didn't know if they kept it. But either way, we are doing the most aggressive possible things to keep ourselves on the beatdown. I think we are playing around their deck correctly. Here, they're going to lose 2 more life, discard one of these cards, which is hopefully very good for us. They lost a Planeswalker, that's good. And we have 7 damage on board once the Kumano flips. It should hopefully be quite good. If they have a Brainstorm as their last card, that Tamiyo would be disgusting. Ooh, okay. So, this isn't quite lethal, but this is close. If we bolt the Tamiyo, if we bolt the Tamiyo, then it is not going to be lethal. It's only going to be 7. So let's go ahead and attack here. And then we bolt them once they decide to block with Tammy. They had to jump there to keep themselves out of bolt range. Always give your opponent the opportunity to make a mistake. Alright, game 3 with Burn. We are against Joker. It's a Lurrus Mirror. We're going first. How do we feel about Searing Blood in a Lurrus Mirror? So this hand is pretty mid. It's one I would consider mulliganing. Because we have no creatures that impact the board, but we do have Bauble plus Fetch Land for a bit of scrying and redrawing. So we could definitely scry towards our creatures. If we go down to 6 cards, is this better or worse than the average 6? I think this is on par for the average 6, so I'll go ahead and keep 7 here. And I'll go ahead and show you what I mean when I say like scrying with a Bauble. So right here, we're going to look at the top card of our own library instead of theirs. Kumano. I'm happy to draw that because that does flip into a threat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play my Bloodstained Mire, my fetch. I'm going to let this trigger pass. I'm going to draw it. If I didn't like this Kumano, I could have fetched right there and I would not have to draw this card. And on our end step, or on their end step, we're going to surveil again to see if we can get a creature to go along with this. Let's see. Hopefully this is a very fair creature-y Lurrus build. If it's a more controlling one, like the blue-black Lurrus, this draw is probably way too slow, and we'll just get bullied because we don't have Swift Spears and aggressive creatures. Okay, we're getting Thought Seized. I am very happy for them to do that. We are playing Burn. They will take the 1 creature threat, which is the card I was happy to keep on top. Alright. Bobble. Are you going to bubble me or bubble yourself? They're bobbling me. I'm fetching right after. They are bobbling nobody. They want me to fetch first. That's fine. Alright, I shall surveil. I would like a creature of any sort. Another land. We do not want that. That goes away. Now, we only have one Surveil land in this deck, unfortunately, because it's really low to the ground. I don't like having multiple tap lands, but Surveil lands are very powerful. I usually do play 2 or 3 in my decks. Another Searing Blood. So if this is a creature Lurrus build, we're very happy to see that. If it is not a creature Lurrus build, then oof, we're probably fighting an uphill battle. Thankfully, Searing Blood is an instant, so we can kill their creatures at instant speed on their end step. Alright, they're passing it back. Looks like they're Rakdos, so maybe a very similar deck to us. Maybe they're also on burn and they also kept like a junky hand with a bunch of baubles and no creatures. Alright, here I think what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to shock and just put the Lurrus into my hand. My opponent has showed Thoughtseizes. I think that's fine. We would still burn them out if they went to Thoughtseize our Lurrus. Lurrus is really sweet with Bauble because I can start flashing it back every single turn, drawing a card every turn. See what our opponent's up to. And if our opponent plays a bunch of threats, we could just like double Searing Blood instead of playing Lurrus next turn. Alright, they will Thoughtseize our Lurrus, which is what I said before is kind of a bad scenario, but really not the end of the world because we can just start pointing burn spells at them at a certain point. Ah, it is a late game, so our Dragon's Rage Channeler comes pre-flipped. Gotta love it when you see it. This is 3 damage per turn if it connects. Our opponent playing Jund probably just has a push for it though, or a lightning bolt, that's totally fine. But they eventually need to present their own creatures, and I have 9 points of burn in my hand. There's a Lurrus. I could sacrifice this Barbarian Ring. I'm gonna wait 1 turn before I do that. I will play the other ring that they know about, and then we can go to their turn. If they play a Lurrus, it's gonna die. Yeah, they know I'm sitting on a handful of burn, so they pay 2 life to prevent themselves from losing 3. Yeah, Searing Blood is sweet against this fair Jund style list. Oh, you want to just pass? Okay. How about you take a little damage? And you know what, since we have this extra land in hand, I think it's okay to sacrifice all of the Barbarian ones. Our opponent goes to 7 here. Let's pass. We don't have the bolt right now. Oh, that's a sweet draw. So it looks like our opponent is kind of dead if they play a creature, huh? Brainstorm? That is a greedy mana base, sir. Curious what their deck is now. So Burn's the perfect deck to punish this greedy mana base construction. They're 4-color something with a Lurrus. What are you cooking, dear opponent? Yeah, this greedy mana base with a Thoughtseize too. Oof, that's something. Let's go ahead and scry here. They could have counter magic at this point. Ooh, the Amped Raptor, you say? That's a good one. This is a must counter. They do have a counter for it, okay. Well, the thing is, our opponent can't use their fetch land, otherwise they just get bolted. Alright. How's it going, opponent? They have a Lurrus probably still in their hand. And they'll just, yeah, because they know they can't play a creature without dying. Alright, well, here we are with Burn. We're the perfect deck to punish this greedy mana base stuff. So, I pointed out these cards as marginal. I just said they're both very good at the matchup. This helps keep them from playing anything and keep their little creatures out of play, and Bowmasters is very good against the Brainstorms they had. They might have too few creatures for Searing Blood is my only concern. And I also want to bring in Eidolon. I think Eidolon is great. So what comes out would be the important question. With counter spells, a sorcery speed threat like Raptor could be considered, but I've called that card the best card in the deck a few times. So I'm not sure exactly what should be coming out here. I'm trying to think. Bowmasters is quite good. Right? Like this card is good. It's probably the worst, so maybe we go down to 2 copies. This is good, this is good, this is good out of our 2 drops. These two creatures are too core to the deck, as is the Bauble to really cut. So do we want to cut like Bump in the Nights and Kumanos? I don't think so when they have such a greedy mana base. I think we just put Eidolons over the removal spells because it looked like they were pretty creature light, or at least they had a creature light draw. So let's run it back with Eidolons over the removal spells. And if I'm proven wrong and they play a bajillion creatures and Deathrite Shamans and everything, we can put the Searing Bloods back in. Alright, here. This is a little bit of a slow draw when we're going second, but we have a Bauble to scry our first draw. And we have double Bowmasters. I value Bowmasters a lot against their deck, to be honest. With all these Baubles and Brainstorms running around. Alright, oh, there's your Deathrite Shaman. Uh-oh. It's a good card. Okay, sweet. So there's a Kumano. We're definitely going to play that. And it's the question of, do we want to play Bauble right now and cycle it? I think the answer is yes. I just want to get through my deck. I don't have any cards in my hand that synergize with it other than this fetch. I'm going to want to use this fetch at sorcery speed to play an Amp Raptor next turn almost definitely. So let's just get through our deck before they can play Bowmasters in response. Yeah, there are no lands in bins, so they could not have played a Bowmasters there. Yeah, and they're going to be brainstorming while they can. Ooh, Hopeless Nightmare to rip that hand to shreds. However, the card I really want is Amped Raptor. Hopefully he doesn't get scolded here. Does not. Nice. Alright, get bumped. Might get pierced. Okay, they do have Spell Pierce. Alright, our opponent paying a bit more life with that greedy mana base. This is the deck that our deck is designed to punish, right? It's doing a great job so far. I think before combat, what we can do is we can play... Want to do it before combat, or do you just want to go in? I think we just want to get in there first. Let our opponent decide to block before they know everything else in our hand. A Bowmasters is going to come in to try and assist in combat. Unfortunately for our opponent, I have a Bowmasters of my own. And whatever they're trying to do here, I am going to mess it up. Okay, you want to block like that? I am interested in letting my Kumano live. So I will take out your token here. Okay, very nice. Notably, Kumano is exiling all of their stuff as it dies, so it doesn't become a valid target for Deathrite Shaman to gain them life. Thought that was fun and worth pointing out. That text on Kumano is very relevant very frequently when you play decks like this. Now our opponent's going to lose 2 more and discard a card. All right, sweet. So let's think about our sequencing for this turn. We got 4 mana available to us. We have Bowmasters. Oh, never mind. All right. That's 3-0. That's 3 good games. I think we can call the video there. Hopefully this was a really nice tutorial. A good way to teach a new player how to play this format. To the people who, say the burn decks are a little easy and that you just turn your cards sideways. Hopefully I showed off some of the nice sequencing and I explained my thoughts pretty well to the point where you realize, oh, wow, if you really think through your lines, that's the difference between being a 40% win rate burn player and a 60% win rate burn player. All these little micro decisions and little sequencing things, little sideboarding things, little deck construction things, they 110% add up when you're playing a deck like Burn. All right. Yeah, this deck is sweet. Like I said, you can feel free to make a couple of changes. Like this Searing Blood is kind of a marginal card, and it's a little iffy to main deck because not every deck's going to have targets. And also whether or not you actually main deck the Bowmasters or put it in the sideboard is rather iffy. So you could put any of these sideboard cards, in my opinion, could be in the main deck. Except the Surgical. That's a little loosey-goosey in the main deck. But if you want a main deck Whirling Vortex to hit on the combo pieces you're playing best of one, absolutely. You want a main deck Thoughtseize because you see a lot of control and combo in your best of one games? Absolutely. You want a main deck Eidolon because you love the card? God bless you, right? Go for it. You can tweak this deck list a little bit. However, this core of cards right here, so efficient. I wasn't sure I was gonna love Hopeless Nightmare. I'd actually not played with it before. I queued up this game earlier today, and I actually really like this a lot. This is sweet. I was thinking, oh, it's a worse bump in the night because the extra discard doesn't always matter when you're the burn deck on the beatdown, because you often kill your opponents when they still have cards in their hand. But no, it seemed sweet today. It's also an enchantment, which is a less common card type than instant. Um, Yep, that's about it. That's my thoughts on the deck. I hope people like this little tutorial. I hope we see more burn mages on the timeless ladder. Thanks for watching, folks.